So starting back the record, so then people can drop in anytime now. Right, half. Awesome.
Yeah.
We can still continue the conversation, but since people might not know what it's about, we just basically discussed. Well, shall I try to summarize? Then you summarize as well. So that might be a great
Sure.
start.
Sure.
We're talking about values and the choices as a result of what happened this week in blocking certain people, also without any prior conversation in the group. It just somebody just took the initiative. And I also found out another piece of information that the women have not been attending because they kind of silently disappeared because they were unhappy with the dynamics. So that's another point. And the two of us try to discuss the relationship between words like values, judgments, choices. And what I got out of is, okay, it's particularly to you, you come from yours. Basic value is to come from a place of inclusion and love, and that we're all gathered. And looking from that, that's where you base your choices on. But you don't call your choices judgment because you use the word judgment when you judge somebody else, have a statement about somebody else being wrong or right according to your values. And according to your values, that's not okay.
Yeah.
And with that, I'm complete.
Yeah, that's really, I think that's the thing. That's it. And it's that, in not projecting.
Welcome.
Alex.
Hi.
It's been a long time, man. Good to see you.
You guys know each other?
We go back. We're both members of the Conversations Excommunicated Club.
Yeah, we've been kicked out a few times.
Which is perfectly resonant with, all the machinations going on in the GCC at present.
So you guys got kicked out? Where? Hi, Glenn.
Hello.
Welcome.
Talk about the machinations. That sounded interesting.
So out of which club did you guys get kicked out?
It was a community on G+.
Oh yeah.
Did you behave badly?
Well, I don't know. Alex, did we behave badly?
I'm not sure. I think it was a struggling community, and there was people that were trying to help it move forward, but not everybody was being listened to. There was people trying to be leaders, and it was also trying to be more horizontal, and it was a mess. It's a big mess.
Yeah. So we're trying to do that and us differently in the GCC, and we've had this emergence of challenge.
Dave Smith. Awesome.
Hey, Dave.
Hello.
So we've had this emergence of challenge that rose to the level, with a couple of people, that rose to the level of somebody literally, pulling the trapdoor and cutting a couple of folks off. And then actually surprisingly strident and robust upwelling of message, with the exception of one person, messages of support and appreciation and gratitude for having done so. Hey, Jazz. And in the meantime, the one person who dissented on principle is the person who I share a resonant value with around that, which is that the fact of doing that has a context and a place and there's an appropriate time in principle, maybe. But if the underlying value set is predicated on the idea that of inclusion and a value set of it's all of us or none of us, and part of the reason for that isn't sort of touchy-feely, flower power idealism. It's practical in my mind because it's all of us or none of us if we're going to survive the global extinction we're headed toward. It's like everybody has to be on board and contributing to the cure or we're going over the cliff. So I take it on a very grounded, concrete level that we got to figure out how to get everybody pulling in the same direction. And that any construct that involves othering, any construct that involves feeling free and entitled to just leave somebody out or shut the door or exclude somebody or reject somebody, ain't going to get us to survival. Like, that's not doing us differently here. Now, I had a conversation. I know I'm going on a little bit of a run, but I think it's as good a place to, since this is, Tammy had sort of asked me to pick up the thread on the values meme, and this is about values. This is about like, what's our value around inclusion and what's our value around how do we deal with individuals that are expressing or projecting stuff that makes it either destructive or challenging or unpalatable for the tribe in tribe-related activities like these circle ups and conversations or conversation threads. And the vision that I had actually held, and Alex, you'll appreciate this, coming out of that other community. I had suggested at one point, which got completely ignored because it wasn't part of the founder's agenda. But I had said, there are people here that have it in their value set, orientation, skill set, to reach out to somebody that may have, done something that was violative of a cultural ethic or vibe or whatever, to reach out and to help sort of inquire into that, feel into that, find out what is going on there, and work toward getting to a place with that other person to be able to get them back into the fold as a 100% fully contributing, present, participating, card-carrying member of community. And that there are people in every group that are inclined that way and have the skill set and the wherewithal to do that work as a value contribution. And that's an affordance and a generosity and an extension of the tribe in terms of GCC as doing us differently, that would be important to me, is important to one other person who's not here right now, that's Anna, may not necessarily be important to anybody else. And I don't presume to project that as a requirement on anybody else. But from a value set, is it okay to not project our energy, care, attention to somebody who gets ejected or gets blocked because they're too disruptive to participate on a consensus basis for the others. You know, do we accept that as a responsibility that we have?
That's an interesting word, responsibility. Could you say more?
Yeah. The all of us or none of us idea is sort of rooted in the idea that if we're going to survive, we've got to take care of each other. People that have more provide some to people that have less. People that have skills and talents that heal or that remediate or that can help people that need help or that need healing or that have needs, that we flow to where the need is. And in principle, if everybody's needs are taken care of, including the planet, including the biome, including all of the other constituencies that comprise our world, then we survive. Holy shit, we make it. If we don't, then we don't. Like, that's what's becoming apparent. In a global extinction event, it's not selective and it's not avoidable. Everything and everybody goes. Like, that's the geologic record. There are no exceptions, and bunkering down in private walled survival bunkers in New Zealand ain't going to save anybody. If the whole planet goes and becomes biologically incompatible and unviable for life, then everything is going. So the responsibility piece is each person has a potential contribution value add, even if it's just time and attention and presence. And the outliers and the ones that are in anger or fear or whatever, or are incontinent behaviorally, or whatever all the reasons are for why people find themselves getting thrown out of groups like this, it doesn't mean those folks don't have value to contribute and bring. It means those folks need more allocation of resource to inquire into what's not okay. What are they wrestling with and struggling with? And I'm complete.
Yeah, I'll just duck it quickly because I need to duck out to that other call, Doug, which I just got a note for. But yeah, fully agree with you. And I've just been through, and as I mentioned, and Harry saw that, the trauma workshop. And, you know, we really carry all sorts of stuff with us from the moment we're conceived. And we live in a complex time, in a complex world with this communication thing. So there's going to be so many clashes. And isn't it the intention of this group in the first place to learn how to handle these things and navigate through them? And so while there need to be boundaries and there needs to be a certain amount of focus and on what the intention of this group is, this brings up a very important aspect of it. And being able to safely take somebody to one side and work with them, as you say, can actually, you know, nurture somebody who's going to be quite powerful to us, because we've already had a lesson in what's happened now. And I respect what Lucy has done and where she's coming from. Maybe there could have been some discussion prior to an action, which I think is, you know, the nature of this group. Again, it's not one person deciding on behalf of everybody else. It's a collective of people and a collective of tolerance points. So I'm going to pop back into this conversation because I have to go and talk to these other guys. But it's nice to be in the right time zone for a change.
Yeah, great. Awesome to see you, Dave, and thanks for what you do.
Yeah.
So
I gotta
good
come
to
back.
have you here. So good to have you here, Dave.
Yeah. Good to see you guys.
Thank you. Yeah, this has been on my mind too a lot since yesterday. In the conversation, now I feel happy that we're having this conversation, and I think that it's an important conversation, and it's some important things that are coming up. It's all of us or none of us, right? It's simply all of us on planet Earth gonna have to coexist one way or the other, and these clashes, they seem to happen very often, many forms, and I don't see them stopping anytime soon. But I felt that the way this happened, it was not the right way. But well, it was the way it happened. But in a sense, I felt that this was an expression of something that has sort of been troubling this group for a little while, and it has to do with purpose. And I think that you were onto something, Doug, when you said that this deep dive suddenly sort of, we're not really knowing what's happening with that. It creates a kind of disturbance because we had a long conversation around purpose. What is the common purpose? We really went into that, and it came out this notion that we wanted to look at the people in the room and the things that each person brings, which is very unique and which is a part of reality, and it's a part of collective existence. Each person is a mirror for the rest, the good and the bad, but that it seems to be that each person in the room is bringing gifts, and unique gifts. And the more we look into these conversations, the more we look into the situation, we see that there's some really great gifts that the people in the room are bringing. And it's somehow deep, it's somehow unfulfilled, it's even sometimes somehow unexpressed, but there's something inside of the different people that for some reason or other appear in these spaces. There's an interest, there's questions, some of them are difficult, there's weird stuff, but there's an interest in exploring something new or doing something new. And some of it's very difficult, and it's very emotional, very deeply emotional, because it concerns the whole existence, it concerns the whole planet, it concerns, my deepest identity. And that's the way it is for us all. So it's really, really big questions, complex questions, relevant questions. We got to deal with it. We're already dealing with it. We got to deal with it many times in the future. These clashes between people, misunderstandings. Someone feels I'm not really being heard. I'm kind of superficially being heard, but I'm not really being understood. They're understanding it in their subjective way, but then where's my subjective way? And then it's this hole of mirrors, and it's so difficult, but it's also so interesting to understand more of it, because this is just the human condition. We have all these biases and experiences and all this stuff coming into this, and each of us see it differently. And then we read little words on the screen. Do we really know what was behind those words? Do we really know the whole story? Obviously not, because it's too much. So this seems to be what we got to deal with. We got to deal with this situation where people around the world have their own stories and their own dreams and their own visions, and are coming into this from many angles. And some of it will be very irritating. Maybe some of it will be really disruptive. I don't know. But I really feel that there has to be a way to deal with this where we don't go into this othering, where we don't need to pass judgment on their characters, where we don't need to assume bad intentions, and where we don't need to assume that we know who they are, because that is fucking bullshit. We don't know who they are. Do we even know who ourselves are? Do I know who I really am? Do I know who I could be? We are layers upon layers upon layers of experience and potential, and we, the whole human history is kind of in us. So those really superficial stereotypes, I mean, it's just so far from reality, and so somehow we got to deal with this. And I just feel there has to be a way where we can really appreciate everyone, and where we can use whatever's being brought in, use it, learn from it, transform it, find a way to deal with it, which works for everyone. Yeah.
This reminds me of a circle I was in, I think also around 20 years ago. That there was a small group that gathered, and basically anything that came into the conversation was just seen as a signal to look somebody. If somebody got triggered, or if it moves you, then the movement of you or the movement of the other is just a signal something is there. And it's not about the signal or the value of the signal. No, it's about what's there question that's interesting. And that allows each of us to go deeper and deeper, because as long as there are disruptions, there are things to be treated, and they ask attention. The attention should go there, and the energy and the time should go there. And that's a very helpful guiding, and then it just becomes a compass to where we need to go. That's my view. Thank you. And mostly it turns out that I first have to sort out my own shit.
So you seem to be saying, Harry, that these situations, they're a compass. See where we are. Learn about where we're at. Yeah, well, I had just, Doug and I were early, so we had a private conversation finally, a one-on-one. And I agree with what Doug said, that we are born as feelers, and then we develop the capacity to reflect on it, and we call that thinking. But our body is our compass. So as soon as anything feels off in the positive or negative or any other sense, that's just a signal. And I think it helps each of us to listen to it and not to reflect or bounce it else or project it outward, because then you don't use it to your benefit.
There's a human beings as beings, as living beings, when they are in feeling, which in our cultural frame usually manifests as being triggered, which is sort of insane, because once upon a time, as beings, we lived in feeling all the time. And in our current cultural frame, it's like, we're either manipulated or we're provoked reactively into feeling. But the truth is, when we're in feeling, those are the moments and the times of greatest connection, empathy, and learning. And and today, in our cultural frame today, those moments are to be stuffed, avoided, never shared, never expressed, under penalty of all sorts of horrors. Like the whole social form and custom is set up and designed to be anti-feeling. Because if we can't share and express and connect around our feelings and learn into that space, then it keeps us disconnected and isolated, and we can be controlled, manipulated, and exploited, which is the current system, right? So getting out from under that and reconnecting means really sort of sensing and paying attention and catching feelings when they happen. And there's a tendency at the first appearance that somebody is going into feeling, there's a tendency for somebody to shut that feeling down. And instead of allowing space, and instead of letting the silence persist, and instead of giving it its moment and its time to express itself, and for the person to share and feel into sharing, or for somebody else to inquire into it to help provoke and support the person sharing into it, there's a tendency to start talking. And a physical version of that, by the way, it was very funny in the conversation yesterday. Colin shared his discomfort with Harry's post about men hugging, and he said, and Harry literally said, you know, I can relate to sort of like a quickie with a little bit of a pat, but it's like, you know, actually intimately connecting and hugging in a full-bodied presence, you know. Yeah, you know, he just couldn't, absolutely, like, was anathema to that idea. Well,
and there was a lot of feeling in that statement.
Oh, there was huge feeling in that statement. So, here's an interesting thing. When you hug somebody or just want to support somebody who's going into feeling, and people will go up to a person who's in feeling and they'll pat them on the back. The effect of that is actually to shut their feelings down, to turn them off. That's what it does. It literally says, stop feeling, stop doing that. That's not okay.
You need to calm down. Get yourself together.
You need to stop that and stuff that and get that out of the field, because that's scary as shit, and I can't handle it. If you really want to be present for somebody who's going into feeling, physical contact is very powerful, but you just put your hand on their shoulder. But you don't move it. You don't do anything to distract or take them out of what they're feeling. You support them in it. And are we taught these things? No. Does anybody go, yo, you know, like, stop trying to, you know, shut that person down.
Doug, did you see that movie that Anna shared from that prison, where they had those conversations, or really felt into it, the prisoners, and they supported each other, then they held each other. That was a video Anna shared, and that was what they did, really hardened criminals in the prison system.
Yes.
But there were some really great facilitators who were sort of, you know, previous prisoners, but they were really, really good facilitators, and they managed to create that support, and they could really feel into all of it. That was a very powerful film. I think they really transformed something, but holding each other in that.
We are getting an orange signal here.
Yes.
Glenn, may I ask, have you ever done stuff like that?
Not in that kind of way, but I have been doing quite a lot of, you could say, sharings in circles where we do listen a lot to the silence. Maybe actually we could do it even more, but I've been doing that a lot with this Gurdjieff group, and it's some very powerful experiences when people are gathered in a room and just being present together. And it's kind of in a quiet way. It's not this very dramatic thing, but there's also other things like movements, the music, which touch the feeling in a different way. But I certainly have experienced that there's something very special that can happen when people are gathered together and they're just being present and accepting and trying to see what is and feel into what is. There's something very transformative about that. I think that sometimes happens when you're having these conversations too, which is quite interesting. It can actually work even in a digital space.
My personal experience is that touch is totally underestimated as a channel to convey much more than you can do with conversations or being present together. And I know I'm still, to me, it's still a very scary realm to go to, because it so directly addresses all my feelings, and particularly the ones I cannot manage or control, or so then the feeling takes over, and that's scary because I lose control, and then I get all the old traumas surfacing immediately, instantly, before my brain even knows. And that can also be very positive, but it requires a very safe space. And I know that I have experienced this far too little, but I also kind of avoid, not so consciously, but I just didn't go back. I was too busy and all. So there's still a lot of thresholds I need to step over in order to do that. And life is not organized in the way that's abundant. While we all have bodies, we're all bodies, but we are basically not touching each other, which is stupid.
Welcome, Heiner Benking.
Herren Benking. Also, willkommen. Can you hear us, Heiner?
Yes, maybe now.
Yes, now.
We are talking about spaces for sharing feelings and also physical spaces where people can touch and give hugs and be together and many things like that. I think Doug has, or you talked. I would love to hear more about what you talked about there with those workshops.
Heiner, would you like to check in? I've got the 3-dog doorbell going off, and it'll stop in a minute.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We hear you.
Okay. Well, I thought on matter and energy, as all energy and whatever was on my table the last. And then I hear you talk about spaces and attention and all this. I think I just last minute into your conversation. I would like to open my desktop. I'm still here on the smartphone. Where are we in the session? What do you do and who is on deck?
We've just been rolling. We haven't really done formal check-ins, but invite check-ins if you want to check in.
Okay, I would like to go on my desktop and check in a few minutes.
Jaswinder and Alex, you've been very silent and listening. Do you have anything to share?
Yeah, a lot of people in the modern world are not very connected to their feelings, you know. I think it's a common thing. We're just, it's also sometimes a cultural thing. Like if you look at different cultures, people that have Spanish roots will actually, when they're talking to one another, will be closer together, and people who are Anglo-Saxon will be like further away, you know, like, hey, nice, how you doing? You know, and then some people will just be closer, and the whole emotion thing. I mean, it's like if I say I'm sad, you know, I heard because someone was kicked out of the group, that makes me feel sad. If you come to me and say, okay, well, how can we fix that? You know, it wasn't a problem. It's not a problem. It's an emotion. I'm just saying I feel hurt. So the only thing you can really do is, okay, well, tell us what do you mean about how you feel hurt? You know, tell us more about how you feel. And then you can't really, to empathize and show compassion, you can't get rational about it and say like, okay, well, what's the problem? How do we fix it? You know, that's not a feelings. Feelings are another level of existence. It's not rational. It's in the heart. And yeah, that's about all I have to say for now. It's a heart thing, and that's why, like, traditionally, technically, women, although it's not always true, but a lot of women are more in touch with their feelings than men are. In some societies, it's not true of all societies. You know, we have to not generalize too much there. But definitely, like, if I look at my dad's generation, the men were taught, you know, you gotta be strong and stoic and not show your emotions because that's a sign of weakness, and you're not a real man if you show feelings. But that's an old school thing that's not even true anymore, and more men are, you know, participating in raising children, and are becoming more in touch with their feelings, and it's hard. You have to try not to generalize. I think that's the thing. And as for the whole thing with the inclusion and exclusion, I think what happened is, like, someone got kicked out, and that kind of woke up the group conscience, you know, like, and so it's natural that, you know, and that we want to talk about, like, how do we avoid that in the future? You know, was it a good decision? Was it a bad decision? Do we try to get the person to come back? You know, and because we're thinking maybe that person had something to contribute, and I don't know. I'm mostly just like, I watched most of the yesterday's talk, and there's a lot of valid stuff that was shared yesterday. So I'm trying to just follow in the same footsteps. But that's all I have to say for now.
Jazz, where are you at?
Present and the other people. We're just going to keep going around in circles. And this thing about feelings and generalizations and communities and cultures seems to me we're all born with feelings. We all rely on our feelings. The heart feeling, the gut feeling, the intuition feeling, there are all sorts of feelings. They're all built in for our benefit. Doesn't mean they're accurate. They can be a hindrance. Feelings will trigger disgust. When you trigger disgust, which it does in women, it can be devastating. You can't get past that. If you've triggered disgust in anyone, it's very difficult to get past that. And the only thing higher than feelings is it isn't suppression. I'll go through this. There is a thing called simplex communication between two radios, is that only one person speaks, because both crystals, although they're in two different machines, are at the same frequency. So you can't send and receive at the same time. And in duplex, you have two crystals each, that's 4 crystals altogether, and they're different frequencies, matched frequencies. So you can send and receive at the same time. So you can have a genuine ongoing conversation. You don't have to say, I'm complete, or I'm over, or Roger. And that's how feelings work as well. When I'm sitting here feeling you, I have to shut my feelings right down to feel you. And I can pick up your vibrations. I can pick up your electromagnetic radiation. And because it's getting warmer and probably glowing and start going red, infrared that is, we can see that to a certain extent, and we suddenly feel it. So if you're giving way to your feelings, you're not going to arrive at the correct solution, which with children, going back to women, would probably be the right answer, and that is to err on the side of caution, regardless. Save the child, save yourself, go forward. Whereas in other situations where it's protection, that's us, by the way, manhood, boyhood, brotherhood, we provide the protection. It's the other way around. We have to step forward, provide the protection for the children and the women. So feelings are something that need to be under control. I'm not saying that you are become devoid of feelings. That's not the solution. It's to be under control of them. If I get angry, can I subdue that anger immediately and not act on that? So we can keep going around in circles. It's a nice little.
Isn't that a problem? Sorry, Doug. Isn't that a problem when you are subduing or suppressing an emotion rather than looking to where that emotion's coming from and what's driving the emotion? You know,
only if you want to see it that way, or you go to the higher plane and not see it at all. If you have the of insulting me, do I accept your insult, or do I say, I've had that one before, you better go and practice some more if you've come around to insult me? And I've had nearly all of them. Thank you. So ladies, on the other hand, are of a different ilk, and sometimes there can be no arguing with them at all. I'm complete for a moment. I'll be back shortly. Thanks for the check-in. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaswinder. It's really great to have you here.
Heiner, are you ready? Desktop ready for check-in?
Yes, I'm here and I'm alive.
Those are two very good things.
Well, I actually came because energy and matter as a universal situation in the drawing by Harry really attracted me. I was the last 3 days with the Europeans and national and then the commissions on resource efficiency for the international resource bodies. We are preparing the climate meeting on Monday. And we are all in our boxes. And then I thought, well, I just dashed in. I at least say hello. Again, only boys. Where are the ladies?
Yeah, one might ask the ladies, I don't know. They bailed without explaining.
So maybe we do something wrong. I'm totally in between everything the next 2 weeks. And I just canceled Sam visiting me a few hours ago because I said I can stand him for a few hours, but not a party. And he was, I feel, disgusted because he really originally wanted to see me for 3 days. But you see, I have my limits and I'm getting old.
Are you motivated, Heiner, for some midnight deep dives? Because I like that concept.
Well, anyway, it's much too early. I'm just coming in. All your schedules are westbound, and I'm looking global bound and not just eastbound. And I'm very concerned about our group, but I also see it as a great challenge. So we have to take it on.
Exactly. And it's good to have this time frame for me down here at the bottom of the planet because it's actually not 2 o'clock in the morning for a change.
I know.
Dave, what time is it now? Will you tell?
It's about 10 o'clock.
Okay, awesome. 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, 9:46. Okay. 12 hours behind you, Harry.
Yeah, that's easy. Thanks.
Yeah.
Did you just talk to, oh, I even forgot her name. Bibi? Our Bibi? I'm very concerned about her. And I think we should make a special session because we are all burning out and we have all our expectations and assumptions, and it's all between matter and energy, or resources and life and energy. So I just dashed in. What is the topic? Have we checked in now?
Well, Harry and I sort of had a one-on-one warm-up about what's been going on here. And I think what I'd like to do, Harry, is just sort of share the perfect storm piece of the, take. So it's been sort of a building perfect storm for the last couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks, right? And the ingredients of the perfect storm, at least, and this is all through my lens, so I don't want to assert any fundamental objective truth or reality to any of this. So if you disagree with any of it, that's absolutely allowed. So my take is that there were these challenges. So one weather front was a progressive building of pressure, frustration, impatience in our engineering contingent, the folks that are very rooted in creating artifacts and building platforms and tools and systems and pieces of the machinery, individually frustrated with either not being heard or not having a way of getting their stuff in front of people, or people not being responsive to what they were standing up and putting out there for the benefit of all. So sort of a lack of feeling of appreciation. And that was being brought into sort of like every conversation. So that was one weather front. Another weather front was that behind the scenes in terms of the Stefan and Dinesh challenges, there was sort of a beyond just the field and scope of the GCC. There were women in the group that were really experiencing some sort of stalking, trolling kind of stuff in various places on Facebook and around the net, and it was building up to the pressure of what the action that Lucy took. But it also was generating this tension where women were absent, were sort of going missing in action. And Harry, made the comment that when somebody votes with their feet and they just sort of disappear, we don't have any data, we don't have any information, we don't have any way of knowing how that happened and what was going on behind that, what the drivers were. But that was something that was also, I think, percolating. Then a third weather front was, people being taken out. Tammy and her brother, and then the loss of her cat. It's sort of like, took her out of flow and presence. Anna had her heart attack, which was also sort of took her out of presence and out of participation, and concern, worry, fears for both of them with what they were dealing with. And then I would suggest a fourth front in all of this perfect storm, which is that in the midst of all of these other disruptions, that people in their own ways were all experiencing the sort of these disruptions as threats to the GCC itself. So it's sort of like, am I going to lose this? Like, this has been a really special place. This has been a safe place. This has been an energizing place. This has been a center of gravity. It's been a center of focus, contribution, value. And is it sort of rattling apart? Is this the sign of it failing or breaking up or dissolving or losing its center or losing its way? And that was its own anxiety provoking and fear provoking dimension of this period. And I think I'm going to actually add another one but I really think it was an outgrowth of the engineering group's impatience. But Sam's sort of taking back the domain he had put the stake into the ground for in terms of barn raising, and returning that to barn raising, and with the effect of it sort of orphaning or discontinuing the deep dive, which had in that mode of construct and expression had stepped into the barn raising slot, but the truth of the matter was that it was through a barn raising lens, it was an experiment. So Sam, as landlord of the barn raising slot, sort of saying, I want to get back to raising the barn, also sort of somewhat cast adrift and orphaned the deep dive that was going on there. And it's sort of near and dear to my heart. I really think it's a powerful practice. So, I said in that session, and will be sticking a stake in the ground, finding another place, another home for it. to stand that back up and to see whether, in fact, it was meaningful, powerful enough as an affordance of the GCC for people to support it, which it's not just the person who says, I want to take the seat or the stage or the mic, but it's the really significant and important and most powerful part of the deep dive as an experiment were the number of people that were in attendance as audience. And the model for it, which is near and dear to I actually really have fallen in love with it the more I've experienced it, which is sort of the Quaker meeting practice, which is a practice of inquiry. So the depth and richness of that is something that I'm hoping I can officially create a sprout for. But right now it's sort of at sea. So that's also sort of a major disruption. And then there's another dimension of frustrations, which is, I think, emergences that are at risk of going away or sort of evaporating or disappearing. And they are Josh's work on website, because the website's going to be mothballed unless we have a collective response to keep it up and running and open. Colin's coming to the end of a cycle around his mapping, where he really needs to have it instantiated someplace and appreciated and valued someplace. And Heiner, your form, which was the work that we did around what you stood up leading into the conference, the Madrid conference you were going to, those two sessions, I think that form is its own sprout. I think it's its own thing. And well, for me it was. I understand if you don't or relate to it that way, but I don't think we got also sort of messy with misnomers through my lens. I don't think that was as much a deep dive as it was sort of the center of it for me was a collective, collaborative way of helping individuals frame up individual dive, like who am I? What am I? What do I bring in a really nice sort of concise packaged way. And the affordance of it was to go through that iteratively so the person got better at telling their story, got benefited from better refined introduction of who they were by another person, benefited by sort of graphic expression translation. So there was a lot of rich stuff in and around that for me, if we were to, if in the website we had a stood up membership page, that a membership profile would carry with it a button to that type of presentation where every single member is sort of the star of their show in that format, which I think the length of it was right, the setup of it was right, the framing of it was right. So anyway, so I see that as another sprout that's sort of, right now flapping in the breeze. So all of these things happened at the same time. And Dinesh and Esteban and outside folk, coming in hard, fast and hard for landing, and everything, all of these things, like absolutely converged on this nascent, little seedling of a thing that we've hatched here, and it was really unsettling, even for me. And so the good news in that, I mean, the value of that, the significance and importance of this as a moment for our tribe, if I can frame it the way I experience it and live it, is that it really kicked everybody to greater or lesser extents into feeling, which means everybody to a greater or lesser extent is in a place of learning and openness, which means we really have an opportunity to roll up our sleeves and make some hay in digging into all of the moving parts of all of this stuff and come out with some collective value expression, maybe some collective decisions, some collective protocols for challenging or difficult situations. I'd love to come up with the way of coming up with a baseline flow of resource to underwrite and support, the artifact, the website and repository and archive of videos and maps of Colin and, all of the things that have expressed themselves that are, I think, critical to the expression of the community and the tribe and the work we're doing. So there's a whole bunch of to-dos. There's a whole bunch of questions and calls to action and all of that. And I can't think of a better time and place for us to roll up our sleeves and tackle them. And I'm complete.
I'm reluctant to muscle in because you mentioned me twice, and I feel I have a little distance because I was like for 3-4 weeks something on a sabbatical. I'm guilty of many of the things you were mentioning, and I'm also very happy that I missed some weeks, so I see it all from a distance. So maybe also you grant me 3 minutes. First, I see the deep dive when you go up again in the third part being the barn raising. And that was my idea. And when Glenn asked me, can't we do the deep dive in the barn raising, I said yes, but I later regretted because the initial impetus of Sam is right to be there on the constructive mode, and we really have to explain in which format, on which level of transformation you are in. Sometimes you're just a butterfly, but sometimes you're not yet. So that is the first thing I wanted to say. Second, I mean, this is a great challenge about our original intentions. I came with Fleming into this original conversations experiments because I thought now we do magic roundtables and that will be thriving. I gave it anyway for free 25 years ago, so I can let go. I don't have to own anything, no attributions needed. And I saw we are not ready for that. We had many, many people, especially after this competition, exactly 1 year ago, with all these foundations throwing in some peanuts, and then everybody like, oh, I want to follow this futures challenges thing. I'm meeting again these people in 4 days or 5 days. So I know these buggers on seed financing. So it is a Foundations 20 meeting. It is all the foundations meeting also for the Climate Summit next Friday. So I know that I was in the development, and you were, Doug, nicely summarizing that I have no home but many histories, that it is very normal, as we don't know each other, that we have the solution for the world, the panacea. I have 3, you have 7, and others have only 1 or 12. So how do you concert it? And I was very, very concerned on the original deep dives, personal stories, which went on for hours and hours and hours, first with Tammy, then with Sam, and later with some others, later Glenn. And then we extrapolated, said, well, then in 2030, maybe it's my turn. That's why I became so strong on saying, please, a little structure. I know I'm a crowd, I'm a German, but if you cannot say anything in 15 minutes or 1 hour, you cannot say it. And you see, my history with this group is, I wanted, like where we are now, show PowerPoints, which every picture is 10,000 words, the Chinese say. And then my slides were not ready because I was in deep political shit at that time. And it was really deep shit on the future of futures and technologies and who is kicking each other out, saying you're not a real scientist or you're not really cultured. So anyway, I am happy to be here. I have to close very, very soon because this time of October, November, early December is a nightmare. Or maybe just one last thing, because also Harry was involved. And as Sam is now somewhere in East Asia, he cannot be with us. But I would like to explain, because I love you all, and you're all my family, but I must confess I have many families. All my grandchildren are from the same son, or so it's all in line. But our family is difficult because we never really met each other. And our words, always out of context, are doomed to be misunderstood. So when you're very nice, someone ignores it. When you write it bluntly, someone is kicking you. And so today, I hope Sam can listen to it later. I told him, please don't come. We prepared for weeks that he comes to visit me. And it was for 3 days. And then we found out maybe it's for 2 days. Then it was for 1 day. Then it was that everybody wanted to be with us. First Lucy, and I had Lucy to come 1 week earlier and 1 week later maybe to be in my place. But it didn't work out, and she has a dog, and all these things has to be catered. So the whole family meeting was reduced to 1 day. And then when Sam said, yes, I'm coming with Gertrude and Harry, I said, no, I'm only 18 hours in my place. I cannot really manage it. And so what I felt is the deep miscommunication or different realities, what I say and what I mean. And when I commit to one person on a certain day, which is a special day for me, but I already excluded all my friends because I'm too busy. And then everybody says, we want to come as well. Then we really have to find a way that we have peacetime. Like when Sam is making a meeting at his home, then we maybe do a virtual satellite meeting in Europe, but not, and we cannot be all at the same time with everybody. So for me, all this communication also around this group was very special. but the title on energy and matter was really attracting me. And now I got into deep shit, but I love it.
Hey, Tammy.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
See you there.
Well, welcome home.
Thanks. Hi, Alex. Long time no see.
Tammy, we were longing for you.
Thanks, Heiner. Yeah, I'm just home now. I'm just gonna sit and listen for a little bit.
We're glad to have you with us, Tammy. We were, yes, into a big conversation here. Many important things. Maybe, Doug, you have something to share, maybe?
He's feeling. I am feeling.
Harry, your mic's open.
Feel like
Silent all of a sudden.
feel like sharing what you're feeling? Yeah, this is. I was going to say this is sort of like Eighth Wonder of the World, that we had a room full of men that all of a sudden got really silent. Like
Yeah.
that doesn't happen. Congratulations, gentlemen, on joining the sentient world.
Yeah.
Feelings.
Yeah, well, it brings us right to I think one of the most important things in between us men and what we started. It was about values, but the whole point is that the values are based on how we perceive the world, and we perceive the world through feeling. And we men haven't. Let me just talk for myself. I never have learned to feel, to be conscious of them, or to use them as an instrument. And I think if we want to do us differently, and we want to change the world and become a different species as humans, and stop exploiting all the resources until we die, then we need to find another way. And the other way, I think the path is to use the feelings in a positive way, not as a way to judge others, but as a way to inform ourselves of what's happening and use this new instrument as a way forward. Because it's multidimensional, and I'm just learning to read it, to feel it, and to. It's worse than that, to even stand all the feelings that are entering me if I open up to all my feelings, and that's hard. That's one thing that's on the list I think, and I think every single man must learn that. The women have their own journey to make, so I don't want to get into that. It's not just the men or the women. It's just, but our path is to feel, and to learn through feeling, and to be masters in it in a positive way, and use it as a force, not as a threat. And I'm very grateful that you joined us again, Dave, because you just shared about the journey you would make. And maybe if you feel that you would like to share what you've been doing, I think that could be an example for all of us. I am, for myself, I'm at least very curious to what you've been doing.
Yeah. Okay. And it was through Tammy, actually, and by mistake. that I ended up going on this little side path.
Yeah, she does that.
Yeah, because I popped into a call with yourself and Stephanie Mines, Dr. Stephanie Mines, the neuroscientist, and we ended up talking about some stuff, and she ended up crying because it was one of those acts of the universe where there was a missing bit that she was looking for, and I popped on the scene, and then my daughter got sick with chronic fatigue, and she's 17, and she couldn't move her arms or legs or anything else. And Stephanie just appeared in this part of the world, in the same town, at the same time, from the other side of the world. So that was kind of meant to be. And so she was here to work with on her trauma work, Shinjin Tara, which is interesting in itself because it really does explore trauma and the roots of trauma, and it brings together Japanese concepts of how the electromagnetic fields work around our body. And she was very skeptical when she first came and become involved, but then being the woman that she is, full of energy and inquiry and curiosity, and bringing her science into it, she could see the reality of traditional observation and thought and understanding, and where we're trying to get to with modern science. So I attended her workshop, which was 4 days, very intense 4 days of understanding the principles. And in that workshop, it's a bit like this group here. It was a real mismatch of people from all sorts of different sort of backgrounds, people that didn't think they should be there probably, but for one reason or another ended up coming along. And it was the kind of the oddballs, the ones that probably thought they shouldn't be there the most, or the most reluctant, that actually added the flavour and the value to the soup, as Doug might say, and brought really to home the importance of self-care and understanding of how our bodies work and the effects of events on us, which really goes right down to the subject that we're talking about at the moment, and how to help people when they might become reactionary, or they have these tendencies to act in particular ways, because we just keep on often repeating the same patterns. And somebody that can become a bit of a troll or abusive can actually be looking for the other thing, and they self-sabotage themselves because they just want to be heard, they want to be listened to, they want to be themselves, but they can't be their authentic selves. They're the selves that they've been taught by probably a parent or a father who's been dominating, who was dominated by his father. So there's a lot to dig into that whole subject. But a couple of nights ago, one of the young Māori guy who had a huge amount of knowledge and wisdom and gave it real an additional layer of depth with the Māori worldview, asked if I could join his men's group, fireside group. And so we sat around the fire, and the smoke always comes in my direction, no matter where I sit, the wind blows. So it was interesting, and I was kind of reluctant to join, because often a lot of men's groups are they just vent out all of the problems, and they retell the same story over and over again. And it was again a real collection of different types of characters. But what really came home was that all of these guys that were there, through the events that had happened to them in their life, they didn't have any support. The support went to the women, the children. They were basically told to man up. Man up, you know, you're the problem, you're the man, deal with it, you know, be strong. And you know, this is such an old-fashioned way of doing things. You know, this is why so many young Māori men commit suicide. It's a leading cause of death in this country for young Māori males, because they have a culture or developed a culture where their self-esteem is around being strong, so-called strong, and putting on a brave face and dealing with the shit, and having been framed in a particular way. Huh? There's the racial injustice. There's the bias towards gender, all of that sort of stuff. So it was quite touching to see some fairly robust on the outside characters show their soft side, and feel that for once they weren't confined to some organised therapy session, but could actually just talk and talk in a more authentic way without being defensive about it. I think this is one of those things that we need to have here in our little way, you know, because we all have the male, female energies, and we're an interesting bunch of people. So yeah, that's kind of about it for me. A lot more learning to do. One of the cool things is that there's a place called Parihaka. Parihaka was a Māori village. It was the most advanced town in New Zealand, Aotearoa. It was the first place to have electric power and stuff. And it was a place where the iwi, the tribal group, wanted to accept all religious views from all around the world. And it was a place that was completely based on peace and living in community in a peaceful way. It was it was different to any other place. And the British, 100 years ago this year, invaded it with 1,500 troops, wiped out a bunch of people. And they did that because these guys were peaceful resistors. And that was a problem. And part of why Stephanie is here is to help deal with the trauma that's gone through generations in that community. And for me as well, for the Talking Forest and other things that we're doing, this is a source of wealth, and it's a way of being that was in a way ahead of its time, and it developed in this small, remote, isolated place. It's still the only place that doesn't get broadband. For some reason, it's been kind of left behind, but its time is now. And I think, you know, the work that she's doing, that she will do, and we will be there this week, will give some clues to how we all might be a little bit more accepting of different views and look a little bit deeper into things. So yeah, that's my 2 cents worth.
You're awesome, Dave. Whoa, thanks.
Dave, are you aware of the Polynesian Talanoa dialogue concepts, as we have now all next 2 weeks around the climate negotiations?
Oh, sorry, Hannah. Was that, did you say dialect?
No, it's the Talanoa dialogues. It is picked up by the UN and done in the UN climate negotiations stemming from the Polynesians. And as I look very much in sharing and gifting in traditional times, not just modern times, it is now very much a hype, and that's why I'm going there next week. So it is a Polynesian Maori approach to deep listening and gifting and going beyond all this superficial stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and that the way of gifting is left very open. Koha, it's called, and so the act of reciprocity is just one that you offer a gift. There is no rules about what you're offering, and the whole offering and acceptance. A lot of people here, particularly those that are on the poverty line or in remote communities, they live more outside the modern mechanism of money and in this sort of Koha framework where they're just, fishing, hunting and exchanging things. When we still do have a housing crisis, it was the marae, the Māori meeting houses that were taking people in and feeding hundreds of people. And it was the poor communities that were providing the food for other people. That's all part of Koha, that's part of connected families and connected tribal groups. And that lack of sense of ownership over things, which is something that we talk about a lot. For us, for the Western world, it's a black and white world where you earn money, you buy something, you own it, it's yours, and then hopefully you can get a better return on it. That just doesn't feature really.
So basically, these are communities that have really demonstrated an example of a different way of being together, and where we really can see that some of the practices they're doing is working really well, because that really sounds like something that can inspire and really change things in a good way.
Yeah, it's kind of a timing thing, really, because this was the last place to be settled by any form of human. It has a very, very rich biodiversity, and that's another whole subject, because this is all part of the whole healing thing that our forests have geared for all of the plants to be healing each other and supporting each other. And like we talked about the other day, pine forests that try to wipe any other species out. And when Māori came here, they came here into an environment that was completely different from the environment that they'd come from, and had to adapt very quickly to the resources. And because of the timing of the arrival of the British, and finding that these people were actually quite clever and adaptable and cunning, they were too problematic to just wipe out. And they'd calculated that on an economic basis. How many bullets would we need? How many are there? And what's it going to cost us? Because they were already trying to do the same in India and South America and other South Africa. In the end, the treaty was established. although it was written in 2 languages. Sorry, am I going on too much, Heine?
No, I just wanted to add, you see the discussion with Marcel Mauss on, is it all on reciprocity? Or Elinor Ostrom, looking into what are the boundaries of generations and of regions? How do you manage precious things if you're living on an island or in a valley with high mountains around you? All this is what I'm bringing to this group for 2 years, and I have written in this sharing and gifting in traditional and modern times. All this is there to go beyond the tit for tat, one token for the other, but the sharing, gifting, empowerment, enlightening. So this is all there. And we took 3 years with the UN to adopt this Talanoa process. And I told you in other environments, this peace dialogues or multi-track diplomacy and peacemaking, what we do with the 21st Century Agora, is looking how the Americans and the Maori adopted it.
Yeah. I think
it's there.
Yeah.
Based
on,
on what the Club of Rome wanted in the 60s. You
Yeah.
see, I'm a little bit tired of always saying the same thing and throwing my belly out or my token out. But I'm so happy to have you, Dave, with me here. So maybe we have to do it one day, one-on-one.
Yeah, sure. And yeah, I get to my point. I just giving it some background framing, because the Treaty of Waitangi was something that didn't typically happen, and it wasn't perfect because the English version was different to the Māori version, and that's when the lawyers stepped in. You know, it was a little bit of cunning, but Māori society end up becoming pulled into the British way of doing things, and they lost that for a very long time until a fairly recent renaissance, where the reparations for land stolen, everything else, it showed a process for the rest of the world to do the same thing. And it should happen to Inuit and the Sami and Native Americans and all of these other people. And so because of that timing, I think we have a pilot program, you know, to be able to understand that giving back and reparation is actually good for everybody. And so the Māori economy, and that's why I was working on the East Coast with a very poor community, to look at the land and take the whole guardianship, kaitangiana aspect of it, and to see, because this is where austerity pops into it. With an austerity mindset, when they first came here, they had to adapt. It was a very rich environment, but they didn't know how to use the materials. They weren't used to the weather conditions. There were giant birds running around the place with no wings, all of this crazy stuff. And so they had left the Pacific Islands because the Pacific Islands were becoming depleted of resources. And that's when chaos and atrophy and all of that sort of stuff start to come in. When you ended up in an environment where you don't have that austerity, you've got lots of food, you've got seafood, you've got these giant birds, chickens that are 12 feet tall running around, that's no longer a problem, and you learn to have that reciprocity. And so again, as we're understanding the environment and we're understanding the richness and the wealth that we're almost losing, there's that opportunity to learn that lesson and to create a model based on that sort of reciprocity and flow, which is, you know, part of our work now. So yeah, there are clues, and there are traps that we can fall into, and we can coat things and just look at the good aspects of it, not every aspect of Māori society is really functioning very well. It was very tribal. I come from the South Island, and that population was reduced to about 1,500 people by tribes from the North Island. So, you know, it wasn't all sweet all the way through. There was still intertribal stuff going on, and that came down to personalities usually. But anyway, that's that.
So Doug, how does that connect to your values topic?
It's resonant for me because the sort of heart and core of those tribal forms are values-based. And it's not competitive, and it's not extractive, and it's commons oriented, organically commons oriented, and we sort of have to get that way globally, like Toot Sweet.
Yeah,
that's the bottom line, and it starts. It starts with figuring out seed crystals. It starts with figuring out small concentrations of alignment and clarity around that, and then it's about applying a value-centered vision on the ground. You know, some of the stuff Dave and I are working on is about that in relation to reforestation. And getting a couple of betas up, and then with the proof of concept in hand, unleash the resources to scale it up at viral speeds to billions of trees for millions of trees. But it's non-competitive, common-centric, collectively oriented for all stakeholders and constituencies. It's not fighting the existing orders and systems, structures, and players. It's aggregating them in a different frame that's cooperative and regenerative. It's putting the pieces together a little differently, but giving everybody what they need to float the boat, to make it work. So yeah, it's 100% in alignment. I mean, I think the path forward is to a certain extent resurrecting a deep past, a deep knowing.
Yeah. And that's what, you know, when you consider people coming to a very different place, they are looking for a way of feeding themselves, and so they're really trying to get an understanding of the plants and the flora and fauna around them, and they're looking for ways of keeping themselves warm. And so they're really paying close attention to what might appear to be a barren, you know, not covered in coconut trees. Where are the coconut trees? That's what sustained us. They're coming into a different environment, and we're kind of doing that as well. And alongside Doug's project that we're working on, I'm parallel to that, I'm working on the project with Lucy around the talking forest. And so the talking forest also introduces to the science somatic knowledge, that the feeling stuff, and the feeling stuff is bringing alive the mythologies and the storytelling, and bringing alive the trees so that they talk to us, and that we can create a lens and see deeper into them and start to understand some of that feeling knowledge, and driving curiosity, which creates dopamine, which is the feeling of love. And so it's equally as important for the reforestation as the protection of the forest. And we're not going to protect something that we only see as a commodity that's going to become a lumber. And that lumber actually ends up being built into houses or coffins as more appropriate. So we take a living thing, we build a coffin, and we place our body inside it. And that's the Western way of looking at something, you know? So there's a lot of learning to be dived into. But we'll recognize the patterns.
I'm going to check out.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. It was really good to see your face, have your presence, hear your voice, man. Been a long time. I missed you.
Yeah, I had a good time. Yeah, I'm going to watch the rest when it's put online. So thanks, everyone, for the time.
Yo, thanks, Alex.
Nice to see you, Alex.
Good to see you here.
It's 4:40, so we're coming up around the corner to the top of the hour. We're 20 minutes out from the top of the hour. Dave and I actually have a date with Destiny that we've got a book to. But I'd love to sort of open up for also sort of closing thoughts, but also action path, because I think there are a whole bunch of conversation to-dos out of all of this that we should think about and figure out how to tackle proactively as a group.
I kind of hope from this, just my last thing, is that others that are watching this that have decided that they don't want to participate, that they feel that we just talk and don't do anything, that they see that there is real value in this and real love and connection and a willingness by everybody to go a little bit deeper and try and understand and resolve some of these things. And, you know, I haven't been involved a lot, partly because of timeframes, but I have to admit I was put off by somebody closing me down very quickly in the introduction. And it was just her style of doing things, that this isn't how we do things here. Chop, chop, chop. And I thought, oh, do I really need this? And so it dropped from my priority a little bit. But then I just miss people anyway. So, and I get to meet them outside this particular circle. So I just hope that that people start to come back in, and we can those other areas, the barn raising and all of that sort of stuff. People can choose, you know, because it's quite clear what the objective is and the intent, and what the modus operandi is going to be when you're in those groups. And so they've got the ability to pop into those groups, and then if they want to have this sort of discussion, that's there, the door's open.
I also feel that there's this thing that we are doing here, what's happening, it's something so typical of being a human. It's such themes that repeat themselves, and but it's big questions because people haven't really gathered these communities around the world with these digital channels before. So in that sense, it's something very new that we need to learn about. But I just really feel that it's important to remember that this is something very big, and if it had been very easy, it would probably have happened long ago, and just feels like it needs patience. It needs, we need to just really go the tempo that we'll go and learn along the way. And today has been one of those conversations. We've shared many things. We've listened. It's been very interesting, and it's an opportunity to learn when these events happen and these reactions happen, and we got to make some choices. It's sort of surfaced, and so I don't know what the right answer is, but certainly feels like we're on to a lot of let's say approaches that can at least carry forward into a very promising future, sort of a direction, and it's a lot of paths that can come out of it, but there is this beautiful possibility of just people coming together all around the world and just building something totally new together, and there just isn't really any limitations to what we can do, and that's it's kind of like very optimistic words I'm talking here, but it's actually true. We have been given this possibility for some reason or other to really reinvent what human connections and human collaborations and communities can be. So that's what makes it so interesting, and also overwhelming, right? So let's say we've been having these conversations for a year, and very, very short time, I mean, for these big questions, but certainly been a lot of experiences, and yeah, I think that was most of it. Harry?
Yeah, I want to share a feeling that's becoming more conscious. I'm more aware of what that means, I hope, and I want to share that. It's been noted that the last meetings were just men, and now Tammy is back as the only woman. And I have indirectly been informed that that is because the women are not so happy about the way things went about. But I wasn't aware of that. I was, of course, aware of that things changed and other people come in and all that. But then I discussed this with Doug at the beginning, and he says, you have a judgment around that. And I said, well, maybe. And now it's been feeling into it. And what's the feeling behind it? I've just found the word for it. I feel betrayed. I feel betrayed that people leave without informing me why they leave. So I was all of a sudden on my own, and they can say, Harry, you didn't listen, you didn't understand. I've been present with all that I can bring. I've tried, and I'm open to hear anything, but if I hear silence, and then I get the judgment that I didn't listen, that hurts me. And I just want to share that. And it feels like betrayal if I want to, that was kind of the word that came up. And how can I talk with somebody who went away? I can't defend myself or get an explanation. So it's hard for me to be at peace with that. Over.
Thanks for that. I really appreciate the feeling into that. Because you raised it, and I've also been sort of cooking on it. And I didn't come to betrayal. I sort of came to abandonment. Sort of like, what do you mean you went away? Like, yo, we're a tribe. Like, you can't just sort of like skip the tribe meeting.
If we are a group, then you should be a group. Then you should, and then if it's something's wrong, fine, just put it in a circle. I want this in.
Yeah, although another piece that I also recognize and remember was how many times what was expressed was, we've tried to communicate, you're not hearing us, like we can't seem to get heard. We can't get you to recognize or acknowledge our problem with what's going on here. And if you're not going to listen, and you're not going to acknowledge, and you're not going to recognize it, and you're not going to change your pattern, okay, bye. So, in fairness, did they like really just take a powder in a vacuum? Not really. Not really. They gave us a lot of chances to feel into and respond to what they were saying.
I believe, but then what then I'm responsible for the fact that I'm probably blind or deaf on that spot.
And that was what they were accusing us of.
Yes, and it's an accusation. You're wrong. You're missing something. It's your problem, Harry. I don't like that.
So that's well, first of all, I'm not sure that they were accusatory in that way.
Now, I heard later on by Lucy, let me quote it, you guys didn't listen. Well, I just only can say I'm listening, I didn't hear, but I was listening. I know what I'm doing. So maybe I didn't hear. Okay, fine. And I get the feeling pops up, I'm just expressing it. I don't judge anybody for, everybody's fine. Yeah, just missing, and I feel abandoned, and the word that came up is betrayed.
Understood.
I'm open to exploring this.
I'd also like to be a witness and name your anger, Harry.
Yes, but I'm just becoming aware of it. I'm just posting it. Yes, now when I start talking, I feel my anger. Don't fucking work out on me. Talk to me. And not behind my back, please. I'm here. Let's have it. And I kind of started the same emotion towards Lucy because she was there and I love her and she shared it. And then afterwards I got the question on chat, hey, you're becoming hostile. So anger and hostility are not the same to me. Jaswinder.
For us to become passionate, us men to become passionate at this level, women will withdraw. They are non-confrontational. If they have a child asleep, one or more, they will withdraw. If they go into a shop, any shop, and they're not received well, they will withdraw. We were not picking up the signals even when they were bright and clear. I'm just as guilty because I tried to calm the situation down in the same dialogue that it was ongoing, and it didn't work. Tammy came in, and straight away she put the timeout signal, 30 seconds. That calmed things down. It's a different tact. We have to be much more aware of looking for signs of engagement. When we don't see those signs of engagement, we have to ask them, Aldehyde, would you like to say something? You're not engaging, you're blank. Lucy, you don't look at yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. She was bright red. I've never seen her like that. And I had to jump in and do something about that before she started boiling. On top of that, she's a moderator. She has made a decision, and we've come in and we've said, well, yes, you've made a decision, and we were going to debate it now. The decision's been made, and we want to debate it. To put it in a nutshell, we're not engaging with them at their level. We're engaging at our playground level, really. And most of us, some of us, are still going through the one-upmanship battle of I'm superior to you, you're frowning there. Happens in every relationship, especially between boys, where one has to be superior to the other. It can be subtle or it can be fisticuffs, but it has to be settled sometime or other. And we had Esteban, and we've got Colin, and there's one more. And it's tit for tat conversations. And they have points to make. And really, those points are highly technical. Women, either they're unwilling to engage or they don't want to engage. And I'm going too far because all this is repeat. This is going to happen again. We just have to be prepared for it. We have to be much, much more engaging, much more open. I'm complete on that one.
Thanks, Jaswinder. Heiner, did you have something?
How do you know? I was just trying to say, and I don't have the right words. You see, I follow this group now since more than 1 year. And the last 2-3 weeks, I didn't have time even to look into the canned video because I was too busy. But I wanted to say something like confessional. I felt, and you were not there when I said it before to the group, I was in a deep desperation today. I was so much feeling like a family, but I also felt I not only have one family. And I was very blunt to Sam today saying, so please don't come. I arranged him to come to visit me for 3 days. And then Tammy shared it to the group like the cat out of the bag. And I really felt that the whole design, especially Gertrude, she's a German, she's direct, she's not like the women, when you say no, she still wants to get it. So it was really like a big dream to have us all together, but not next week. And so I was really desperate, feeling that there was a high need to talk. And even then Harry volunteered, well, I come as well. And then with Lucy, I had the idea, she has no home. She can stay at my place for 1 week or 10 days. And then I go for that weekend. And then I go away for another week. And then I realized she has a dog. So I had a lot of family affairs with your group here. And it then suddenly turned more and more out how difficult it is, because everybody, and I feel the deep appreciation that Harry wants to go from Holland to Gertrude to Berlin and whatever, that I had to really piss him off today, and he is somewhere in the Far East, saying, then please don't come at all. I mentioned it before more nicely, like saying, it is so great that you all want to visit me, but I'm just bumping in and out of my place. And I promised weeks before Sam he can visit me, but I wanted our group to meet parallel to Sam between Christmas and New Year. I cannot just be there in visitor sitting or babysitting when I'm just trying to dash in and out and dearly want to meet Sam. So we didn't have a clash, but I saw his really desperation. He arranged everything to come to Berlin, and I tell him, why don't you stay in Frankfurt? So it is like family affairs. I like it very much. It is like feeling very close as a family, but my time, October to early mid-December, is always horrible. And so anyway, I want to shut up just saying, I feel one, but you're not my only family.
Thank you, Heiner. I'm conscious of Doug and Dave needing to book it, so I wanted to check in and check out. It's really hard for me to connect in this meeting and to feel the space as a connected space. Obviously, I've been aware of the conversations around inclusion and exclusion and how we do those things. I was hoping to be able to participate in that conversation today, and that wasn't what I walked into. And that's okay. And I deeply value, Dave, your work and having that moment open in this conversation. Unfortunately, I felt disconnected because, in part, I think because I want to hear about your work in a set stage that's giving it its time and space with other people who are actively exploring that together. And because I came into this space with knowing that our community has the danger of falling apart in this moment, this is what I'm seeing and feeling and experiencing. And I want to be right on the head of that. And that's not to discount the important work that you're doing, but rather to want that to be in a space that's designed for that and that is supporting the ongoing engagement of it as a designed session, because I think that that's the power of using these spaces as collaboration spaces to deeply engage in people's work. So I want to honor your work while noting that for me to walk in felt like a bit of a red herring and a dishonoring of the deep work that you're doing in place. I see the corollary aspects of ethics and values, but it does. And for me, I've you know, here in the Artery, I've been 12 and a half years here, and one thing that I have a deep sense for is when people are about to leave. And what my experience is that, I mean, people have left this space all along. This is not a new thing. The law of 2 feet has been active, and I've watched it again and again. What I'm seeing, sensing, and feeling over the last 2 weeks, that a couple weeks, maybe 3, that I haven't had the capacity myself to be present to because of losing my brother and you know, my Chili, my lovely cat human, is that there is something really important for us to be with. And that is that we are co-creating this collective space together. We're investing our time, attention, and energy in it. And if there is a co-opting of that space, or the space does not feel good for whatever reason, that needs to be addressed in place. And I was hoping that today we would be doing that for this Friday experiment, recognizing that I was in transit from returning from my families. And I know that some of that was done at the top, but I didn't get to experience any of it. And that is deeply missing for me. So I just wanted to really share that my heart is heavy, because this space obviously is important to me, the space that we've created. And I'd like for us to be intentional and present with what's going on. And in part, the difficult things that are happening are an opportunity for us to be with it and figure it out. And there's beautiful and interesting things to look at. And, I can't underline or express enough how important your work is, Dave. And so this is certainly not a pushback against you, and I deeply respect it. But rather I want to be in a conversation that's actively participating with the people that are present. And that was missing for me today. So I just wanted to put that in the center. And we've got to feel this together, step by step. That's part of the thing, and it is uncomfortable because we're all called to stretch and grow. And I'm committed to carrying on, but this is a difficult moment in our growth and development. And I want to face it head on, clearly. And with that, I'm complete.
Doug, you are muted.
We do have to book, but Tammy, I want to suggest you watch it back fully, because what you just shared was actually framed and stated earlier. You weren't here during that, but you're not alone in what you just shared. So that's a disruption in the field that's affected everybody, and everybody's feeling it. And some people are in more isolation in their feelings around it, and some people have had the benefit of talking about it in this context, like together. So, I think it's about the folks that are sort of out in isolation with the disruption in the field and the challenges around all of this, need to be brought back into the fold from the standpoint of recognizing they're not alone in the issues that they're wrestling with. And the goal and the idea is for us to wrestle with them together. So I strongly recommend you watch it back, because where you finished is actually sort of, I don't know whether it's where we started or somewhere in the middle. But you're not alone. You're not alone.
Yeah, I second that, and I really felt that before you came, we did have a very open, good conversation about this, that we are feeling this.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm gonna take a cheap shot and just say, oh, good, the men have sorted it out.
I don't think
that's
so.
kind of what that feels like. It feels like, okay, well, yeah. And
we're on our way. We're on our way.
We are. And there's some yeah, that just felt a little difficult for me to hear. Yeah, I joined a group of all men that have, I don't know, it that doesn't feel good to me.
We haven't figured it out, Tammy. We're just looking at it.
Yeah, my statement wasn't to say we figured it out. My statement was to say that what you articulated had been shared here by and amongst and between us. And that what you shared is a shared feeling and experience. I'm not quite sure how you got it as we figured it out. And my suggestion, you look at it back, was not to suggest anything other than to communicate you're not alone.
Thanks.
Everything you said and shared, we recognize and shared by and between us in this session. So I think that's of the essence of this as a starting place, which is everybody has awareness that we're not alone.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
So I just, for clarity's sake.
Yeah, I guess for me, I actually wanted to be a part of that conversation, and I know I couldn't be here. And it seemed like I was in a different conversation, and I was, than I desired, I yearned to have. And so you're hearing my disappointment.
Can you say more about what conversation you want to have?
Next time, I'd like to actually have it. Yeah.
Doug is gone. Okay, that's weird. Feels weird. I didn't get that. I might not have listened well enough. Does anybody want to continue, or is this a good time to check out?
Check out.
Okay. Anybody wants to start? Then I will. I feel frustrated now. For a number of reasons, I shared some. I started early on with Doug about values that was rather focused on one topic, and then everybody comes in with their own thing. And it, of course, everybody was happy to meet Dave. Dave was more about telling a story than about his own experiences. I think that's maybe that's what you missed, Tammy. Well, no, let's leave it at that. I feel frustrated, and I have to think about what exactly touches me here. With that, I'm complete. I'll meditate on it. Anybody else wants to check out?
For my part, I think that I probably shouldn't have joined this session, because I should either be there at the beginning to feel it from the beginning so that I'm complete, or not. Because I definitely was coming for something I didn't get to experience, and I missed that because I missed this space. I've missed being here. I've missed our community and our family, and I still do. So I am carrying some sadness, which is not a surprise, because I've also just come home to a home that my kitty no longer lives in. Thanks, everyone. It's really nice to see you.
Sometimes it's more than just a spoonful, and sometimes it's much and too much. So was also coming after 2-3 weeks and seldom even listening to the videos. It is really like a transgression that the contact is very difficult when it is so remote and with so many different people and so many expectations and assumptions. But I thought it was important to come, and I had my own personal originations. I hope it was not too much for the group, and I was not aware that we had a talk with someone in the ring. Anyway, I enjoyed it. Good night and good luck.
Hello,
Ramesh,
Hello, Stefan. It's interesting that you're arriving at the very moment that we are closing down, but maybe it's kind of interesting to have a conversation. Glenn, you want to check out or what's...
Yeah, I just wanted to say that you came right at the end of this conversation, but if a few of us wants to hang out a little while, I'm good for that. So, and Jess Winder mentioned something about that. Bye, Heiner.
Okay, I think we're at the end of the Friday experiment, so I'll stop recording and I will start recording again and say hello to Esteban and can have a conversation if you want, Esteban. Stefan.